Hey guys, me again with another YouTube video. Ignore the desktop background, it's just my screensavers and whatnot. Especially these. Wow, that's really blurry. But yeah, they're pretty much all the rendered images that I have. But today we are going to be taking a look at my very first weapon from Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I probably will be making more in the future. In fact, I have already finished the Atlas 45 and will be doing a video of that highly. Wow. Very likely. Highly likely. Very soon. Um, but the RW-1 is probably my favorite weapon from the game because it looks so damn good. And I wanted to do my absolute best on that in the LEGO model, and it really paid off because it looks very fantastic. It's probably one of the best on YouTube, and that's probably because I don't have any restrictions using LDD in terms of bricks like other people do in real life. I understand the struggle there because it happens to me all the time. But basically, I have the rendered picture of it that looks like these. These are the LDD to Pavre renderings that look super, super awesome. Hyper realistic. I love these images so much. And I have it right here. So this is the RW-1 railgun pistol from Advanced Warfare. And its normal configuration, all rendered up in Pavre, and it looks super nice. I really love the look of this model, and I really love what I've done. But without further ado, we will be getting into the actual model inside of LDD itself so you guys can see exactly what's going on. So here it is. This is the RW-1 complete version number 2. I don't know why I have version 2 downloaded. Version 3 was a little bit better. It had some fixes on the trigger guard here and then some smooth plates on these little studs here just to make it look better. But whatever, version 2 works. It's not that big of a change. So we're going to start with the grip here, and then we're going to move our way forward. So this grip was probably the hardest thing. This grip was probably the hardest thing about the RW-1. It has a very distinctive grip and curve to it, and has very nice feel to it from how ergonomic it looks. But the issue that I have with it, that something that Brandon Allen, Future 83, brought up, was the fact that when you're holding this weapon in game, the back of your hand comes way up into this curve, but the trigger is way down here. So your hand is at this kind of weird angle going down here. So that's super weird, and I don't like it, but it looks super duper comfortable to hold in the meantime. These little gray parts here are meant to emphasize the finger holes. Basically, your middle finger is going to wrap around this top one. Your ring finger is going to be somewhere right down in here, and then the pinky is going to come down here. Maybe if you space them out a little bit more, you can wrap them around, but I probably want to do that. So the hard thing about this grip was definitely right here in this section. On the actual model itself, you can see that there's an angle, and then it drops down and comes out like this. So this angle is something I don't do too often, and that's because it leaves a space. And you can't see it here, but you can really see it here. That's the reason I don't do that too often, but I decided to do it here just for the fact that it looked way better. Moving on into above the grip, we have basically nothing going on here, just some detailing. So the back of the gun itself right here, you can see that there's a black that sticks up here, and then it comes into the main frame itself. This should be at a slant itself, but I didn't want to do that because the slant itself comes in from the pistol grip down here. So to make this a slant means I'd have to do some really complex shaping here, and it ruined these two pieces here, and I don't want to do that. So I left it here because it just looks really nice with the rest of the weapon. Moving down into basically the frame. The frame is from about here to here down. Is basically the frame. So as you can see, there's a lot of detail going on in this frame. You have the black little piece here in the circle and the lighter gray piece behind it. That's on both sides. There's a gray piece somewhere up here. I just did a register piece because it looked a little bit better. And then this 1x6 plate covers up all the holes and whatnot of the trigger mech so that you don't see those grayness. Speaking of trigger, this is a working trigger. It does function. It does move back and forth like it's supposed to. The trigger guard was a little bit easier to do than what I thought. It's just these hinge pieces. that click into place. And then at the end here where there's this gap here, I did, of course, the standard slope piecings and then just a hinge brick that goes up into the top of the frame. Like I said, though, there's a gap here in the main frame that I don't really like, but I kind of had to deal with it because it makes it look really nice with the... there's a colored version that I did that has a different color here than here, and it looks really nice because it's a nice curve. So that's kind of like... You can't really notice it here in terms of looking good, but you sure do on a colored version. So the rest of the frame is this darker gray part. In the version 3, these are moved over one to cover up that black part since you don't see it. But yeah, I don't have version 3 open. So, but this also on version 3, there's a plate down here to stop this from going what it's going to do later when I show you guys what it does. But so this is basically where all the pivot action happens. Here's the pivot hinge piece itself. Here's what it pivots on. It's the friction peg pieces from Technic. It keeps it from just... If you use the light gray frictionless pieces, it's just going to flop around all over the place and not do what you need it to do. If you use the actual friction pieces, it has a bit of a resistance to it that keeps it from just flying around all over the place. Now in terms of the barrel, and then this is basically just a support. This is the chamber and this is the rail. So this was probably the most difficult. I had an idea of what I was going for in my mind, and I had to go with it. I originally built the barrel a long time ago. There's an original RW-1 barrel that I have in my Google folder. Let me just show you guys real quick. See, this is the original RW-1 right here. And it's literally just the barrel. There's the version 3. I put it in the wrong folder. That's why. Alright, so as you can see, there's no version 3, so that's why I didn't open it. So I need to go through and fix that later, but that's neither here or there. So basically, here's how I did this entire process. I started with this bottom part here. I knew that there's going to be a large gray piece that runs the length of this. At the very end of that gray piece, there's going to be a rail system. On top of that gray piece, there's going to be a little bit of black detailing, so I needed that there. And about here, there's going to be like a slant support piece that connects it to the barrel itself. So I got that done, and once I got that done, I started work on the second layer. The second layer is all of this black that you're seeing run all the way through here back to the chamber. That's the most crucial layer in this entire build because this connects back to the end of your support piece here, right about here somewhere, and everything, it connects here, and then your entire barrel is held on basically right there. On the second layer, it's this part, and then it comes all the way through to the top of the barrel, and then it comes into this piece that comes over the barrel that works kind of like a heat sink, just a little bit. Now then the barrel itself, I knew it had to be 3 studs. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It needs to be 3 studs. So that's kind of hard to do because 3 studs has to be turned sideways. And when you turn it sideways, you're messing up everything you know about Legos. The measurements that are needed are completely different, and you have to do a lot of trial and error to get it spot on. So that's what happened here. I was highly fortunate to get seriously lucky and not have to do any changes to it as I went. I started with the sides on both of these, on both of the sides. I did both of those first. And then I started work on the top, on the heat sinks up here and these pieces here. I finished that, and then I started work on the chamber and the rail system back here. The rail system was the very last thing that I did, and the chamber was the second to last thing that I did. This entire support piece was in the middle of the build, and then the main part of the barrel was in basically like the last stage of the build. But I did do a super awesome design for this barrel itself. As you can see, here's the yellow circles that you see. I don't know if they light up or anything, but I like them because they add a really nice translucent effect on the final version here. It makes translucent pieces look way better. And then from what I can tell in-game, these bottom slopes are actually not as slopey out to this side of the rail system like these ones up here are. So I had to break out some special slope pieces that don't exactly have the top pieces to them, and start with those as a base, build this ledge right along here, had to add in the black tile pieces for the heat sinks, and then had to come through and add in these jumper plates and then the translucent pieces up on top. And that was all unplanned and it worked out almost perfectly. So I'm really happy about that. Now then, in terms of what's in or on the other side of all of this that you're looking at here, there is a giant 32-meter long axle piece. That's the longest axle piece that Lego has ever produced. You can only get it basically by custom order. I don't know any Technic sets that come with it. Um, and it holds from here all the way to about here together. It's a super, super long axle piece. It's really good because it makes the entire MOC really structural sound. That means there's 32 of those cross axle pieces, 1x2x1s in there that are all being held together by that 32 axle piece, and it's double stuffed between two plates, which means this barrel is not going anywhere. This is a really strong barrel. It's probably the strongest part of the entire model, and it really needs to be because it's the one that underneath the most stress. Up on top of that, though, I had to build jumper pieces. So if I get rid of this, as you can see, I just so happened to get super lucky in that these jumper pieces lined up perfectly with the top of these three plates turned sideways, so I didn't have to worry about anything there. So now that I did that, I could go through and I can build all of the heat sinks. So the heat sinks are 1x3 plates, and if you take a look at the picture, they basically line up exactly where they are now. There's about a stud apart from each of them, and at the very end of the barrel, there's going to be this little piece that kind of splits apart. I think it's like a bigger heat sink type thing, especially at the end of the barrel where it's like nice and hot, things like that. So that's basically the barrel and how I built it. So moving back into the chamber, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated because this was like the last thing. I didn't really want to change anything about the entire barrel system, so I just had to work with the room that I had. So we all know that on the RW-1 there's like little wing pieces here. That's not a good way to put it, but there's a black strip here and a black strip here, and then the rest of it is like outlined in white. So I did that using curved pieces or hinge pieces that you will be able to see when I pop this baby open to show the working reload feature. And then there was a little bit of black down here, so I went ahead and I made those slope pieces instead, just to make it look a little bit better instead of like giant flats. That's not really good for the whole complicated vibe going on. So we got the slope pieces in here. There's the chamber on the other side that does feature the working reload. And then the rail system is weird because it's like a dual cantilever. So for those of you who don't know what a cantilever is, it basically is a diving board. A diving board is a cantilever. When you put the weight at the very end of the diving board where you're going to jump into the pool, all of your weight is being transferred to where it's supported to on the ground. And that's what we have here. This entire top rail section is a diving board. So you'd be standing here about to jump into the pool, but all of your weight is being stressed right in this area instead. So we have our first cantilever here throughout this rail system, but our second one is right here coming this way. So you'd be jumping off the pool this way. So it's like a double cantilever system going on here, so that basically you can mount an optic way right here, but all of its stress is basically going to be exerted right here. I still wouldn't recommend that. I'd probably mount the optic right about here so that it gets really stressed right in this area, and then you don't have to worry about breakage as much as you do if you mount it on the very end, and it looks better right about in the middle. But that's pretty much, I digress with that point. But this was super kind of easy to build. All I really had to do was take these 1x12 pieces and stretch them across up to the back of the frame receiver type thing going on here. I put this piece in the middle of them to keep these hinge pieces from popping up way too far, way too high, way too far. And then we just had to slope this up, and then we made our Picatinny rail. And since our Picatinny rail works as our sights, you basically just have a finished RW-1. So this features all the real working features of the RW-1, which is pretty easy because all it really does is, well, the trigger moves and the barrel pops open. So I'm going to have to apologize in advance for how this barrel works because LDD's LDD's hinge tool when it comes to this type of thing. Oh yeah, I forgot. The barrel connects into place with 4 studs in the back here, so I'm just going to delete these 2 things because those are the 4 studs. And then go back to the hinge tool and select this, and if it would, no, God, there we go. So as you can see, your barrel will pop open, and that's about, oh God, that's about as far as it would open in the version 3, because the version 3 has a plate down here that stops this piece at the end here from moving way too far, but this one doesn't, so I can basically just stretch this all the way around so that it's like a giant U. But as you can see, it does have the reloading feature, and there is technically these pieces here, so don't worry about that. As you can see, it sits in this little cradle right here. You can see the top of the trigger mech right there. That's part of the trigger mech. But it sits in this cradle, which means it's nice and secure in place. And then the chamber itself is this piece right here, which you can fit a tile in, which I would recommend. It's a 1x6 tile. You could put pieces on it, specific pieces to get it to like friction in there and stay in there nice and good, but I wouldn't recommend doing that because that makes it kind of hard to reload. If it just kind of like flops around freely whenever you pop open your break action barrel, that's a lot better because that just makes it easy to reload. You guys also have to remember that the actual RW-1 shoots all of its cartridge, so if you make it easy to kind of flick out of the chamber after you've quote unquote shot it, maybe if you do it quick enough, you can make it seem like you've actually shot the 1x6 plate, and then you don't have to like manually reload it like it's a bolt action or something like that, like a 12 gauge shotgun, because this style of railgun doesn't work like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this RW-1. This is probably one of the best RW-1 on YouTube, RW-1s on YouTube, and I really want to see if I can find all of the pieces on pickabrick.com and get a decent price quote and see if I can sell one of these or 2 of these as like an actual like set that you guys can buy. But the issue with doing that is Pick-a-Brick, I know for a fact, does not have all of these pieces. There's just no way it's going to have all of these pieces in the colors that I need. So I don't want you guys to get into like this giant frenzy about how I'm starting to sell gun models and things like that. I probably won't be able to because Pick-a-Brick doesn't have all the pieces, especially these pieces. I doubt that Pick-a-Brick has these listed in the color that I need them. These are really specialty pieces. I probably have to go to Bricklink to order them, and if I have to go to Bricklink to order pieces, that means I'm buying in bulk, which means it's going to jack up the price of the RW-1. If I can get a Pick-a-Brick order where it's like literally just the RW-1 is the entire Pick-a-Brick order, then the price will be much cheaper. That means everything's going to be shipped to me at once. That means I can build it for y'all. I can send y'all a thank you card in the package, and then y'all will get your working Lego RW-1. But if I do that, I'm gonna have to make update videos, and I need to know if you guys are willing to do that because it is a pain in the ass to sit down for 4 hours on the Pick-a-Brick website and find each and every single one of the pieces, add them to the cart, and get a price quota for you guys. That is a giant pain in the ass. If any of you have ever done it before, I guarantee you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. But I really need to know if you guys are willing to buy these because it just makes sitting down much easier. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, it's not gonna be cheap. I'm looking anywhere from $125 to $150 for what you're seeing here, and probably not something that you're going to be able to like walk out in the public with. You'll probably get shot. I'm not going to lie. So there's probably going to be some paperwork involved in the form of a waiver, yeah. So these things are going to be expensive if I do sell them, and that's a strong if. Don't quote me on this ever because I really don't know if I'm going to be able to sell these or not because Pick-a-Brick seriously might not have it all. Um, so after this, I'm probably going to be reviewing the Atlas 45 from Advanced Warfare. I will probably be remaking my VBR PDW to fit the Advanced Warfare VBR PDW, which means I just need to change the color of it and the stock. And as for the MP.443 Grotch, I really don't know if I want to build that weapon. I'm kind of fed up with that weapon. The first two weapons in the game that I got to Diamond Camouflage are the RW-1, which is my first, and the Atlas 45, which is my second. I worked on the VBR PDW for a little bit, got fed up with it because it's such a shitty-ass pistol, and then I started on the MP443 Grotch and got fed up with it because it's also such a shitty-ass little pistol. Both of those are probably some of like the worst. I would much rather take the Atlas 45 over the MP443 Grotch any day, and that's saying a lot because the MP443 Grotch is supposed to be way better than the Atlas 45, but I can just somehow make the Atlas 45 work much more than I can the MP443 Grotch. So be expecting an Atlas 45 review soon, and that's pretty much the end of this video. I've been going on for what, like 20 minutes now? I have no idea. But that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys later in another video. If you guys don't mind, please comment, rate, and subscribe this video for more videos like this one. If you guys haven't already, please check me out at bluejthemeister.weebly.com. It's a super cool website that I run. It's right here. You know you're on the right page when this comes up, and this looks basically, this archives every single weapon that I've built that I have on me, and it's a pretty nice website if I do say so myself. And I basically update it almost every day. I've actually had to cut down on that most recently, but I will be updating it more and more as we progress. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys later.